This is Kathleen Standen's final project for Ed 782. So if you saw my attached, this was my product, I guess. I decided to do a map of the brain and have part of the right brain and the left brain, and then what I felt fit with both brains, as I say above. And as I thought about my final project, I'd emailed you and said that, the rubric states that you need to use Brain Matters. However, I really found the golden tidbits every week to be very beneficial. And so I wanted to incorporate the new art and science of teaching and those golden tidbits into my final project, because honestly, I feel like those have been some of the greatest things that I've gotten out of this semester, and I wanted to really show that and put that to use. And so as I looked back at my golden tidbits that I had submitted throughout the semester, some things stuck out to me. So the first thing that stuck out to me was they were basically in 3 different categories. They were in the categories of instruction, assessment, and environment. So those were the 3 categories that my golden tidbits all fell under. So instructional strategies, assessment strategies, and then environment of the classroom. Another thing that I noticed is how much they tied to the right and left brain. So I wanted to tie the 2 Brain Matters and new art and science of teaching together to really prove my learning this semester. Excuse me. So I teach 5th grade. So 5th graders are 10, 11 years old. And at my school, it's the last year before middle school. So I really prep expectations. My expectations are high, and what that looks like moving forward into middle school. So this year, Mrs. Standen expects this. Next year in middle school, they will layer on this. Or the reason why we're doing this now in this part of the year is because you're going to be expected to do this independently in 6th grade. So really scaffolding those expectations. And it goes along with what Chapter 6 in Brain Matters talks about, all about the adolescent brain. So the adolescent brain is a work in progress, as we know, and it's growing very quickly. The 10 to 12 age is another time of main brain growth in people. So really making sure that what I am doing in my classroom helps with that rather than hinders it. The frontal lobe is really being developed at this point. And that main form of the frontal lobe is forming judgment about things. And so really kind of working as an environment in my classroom, how can I aid to that? How can I help students understand judgment and what's right and what's wrong, and what they should be doing versus shouldn't be doing, and why? I guess that's the most important, is why should they care? And their emotions are primary. So rather than thinking through and stopping, they're emotional responses. So I really thought about linking those things, the adolescent brain, what I teach, to left and right brains and my golden tidbits. So if you look at this, I took all of my golden tidbits and I either categorized them in the left brain, the right brain, or both brains. So in my right brain, I had free-flowing webs. So the free-flowing webs. So the right side kind of provides context. It's more artistic as people think. So one of my golden tidbits was about free-flowing webs as an instructional strategy. Really thought that would fit over there. That works really well with the adolescent brain in the fact that for free-flowing webs, peer teaching could go along with that. You could compare and show webs. That would go really well with that. Oftentimes my both brain kind of ended up to be environmental things. So revisiting rules and procedures, that is important for both sides of your brain, and that's very important for the adolescent brain. So as we think about why we should be revisiting expectations and procedures, rules and procedures, going back to that emotional response rather than processing. So the more we can teach students about processing and how to process through, the less that emotional response will come through. Mindfulness practice was another one of my golden tidbits. Again, that goes with emotional responses, being mindful. Scheduling interactions, so really being cognizant of what students you're talking to, what you're talking to them about, when you're connecting with them, that emotional piece, making sure that they feel valued. I know that that's a big thing in 5th grade, is not all of my kids, they're starting to do that self-esteem puberty thing. And so really making sure that they know that they're important and that they're valued. High expectations are for all learners. That fits with both sides of the brain, because high expectations can be different things. You know, you can expect processing, you can expect different, people can show their expectations in different ways. High expectations in different ways. So that really shows both. Again, being valued, thinking you're important is important in the adolescent brain. And knowledge applications. So how are students applying their knowledge is another part that's important in the adolescent brain. I also had quite a few in the left brain. So assessment scales is a form of a rubric, and that is a really big process. You can easily see the process and the procedural through there, so that fits well in the left brain. Purposeful homework, I had a struggle with this one, but I ultimately put it in the left brain. Meaning. What is the meaning behind this? Kind of developing that. And then assessment addresses levels 2, 3, and 4 on the proficiency scale. Again, that goes back to assessment scales being very procedural, very aligned. So how could I be using this now? I kind of talked about that as I was going along, but looking at this brain and the golden tidbits that I had lots for both. I had lots for left, not so much for right. And as we know about the adolescent brain, so as 5th graders, they don't do so great in set and get situations. So really thinking about, how can I enhance this right brain side? What can I do as instructional strategies? How can I move people around? How can I use peer teaching? How can I use engagement, humor, emotions to really engage all sides of the brain, and especially thinking about this right side. I'm really thinking about my students in my class right now, and so many of them are really artistic. They love drawing, and they love free writing and activities like that. Those really touch on this side of the brain. So what can I do in my instructional techniques that fits those needs for those students? I also think that this is just good, because looking at this, you can see, especially with environmental things, you're not just one brain. You're not just a left brain person or a right brain person. Oftentimes I've heard that a lot in psychology in my undergrad. People, oh, I'm this brain, I'm this brain. Well, no, because whatever you're doing is going to connect to students. So if you are trying your hardest to fit both and then specialize in each area, you're going to be meeting all needs for all learners. Something that we have been talking about as a school this year is looking at our forward testing data. Our data for boys is significantly lower than our data for girls. And so we've been talking as a staff about, what can we do to make this better? What can we do to enhance our boys' scores as much as our girls' scores? And I was thinking a lot about this, both brains, when we were thinking about that, because talking about it, we've talked about no matter what we do, we will be helping all students, because we're defining our practice, we're making more instructional strategies that are more engaging. And that's with this. If you are focusing on these sides and doing things to incorporate both sides of the brain, you're going to help all students, no matter if they think they're more right or left-brained. So I think that by using these instructional strategies, assessment strategies and environmental strategies, referring back to this and really thinking about that adolescent brain. I was so happy that now that I referred back to that adolescent brain as I was thinking about this more, I feel like the things that I learned about in my golden tidbits really hit fifth graders. So continuing to look at this as I move forward, planning different activities and thinking what would be best for not only both sides of the brain, the adolescent brain, and what do I already know that I can take off from there. So again, this was Kathleen Stannon's 782 final project, rationale and application. Thank you so much.